Hi, I'm Jack Howell. Recently I made a couple of quick reed tip videos and a Mouthpiece Talk video where I started exploring the concept of the clarinet playing system. The idea being that any part of the system, whether it's the reed or the mouthpiece or whatever it is not good and bad in itself. It's a matter of how it relates to the other parts of the system. Before that, my friend John Wiegand joined me for an excellent video, because of him, not because of me, on adjusting reeds. If you haven't watched that, I suggest it. It all fits together. But right now, let's look at this box of reeds. Yesterday I was cleaning this place up and I came across this box of reeds and it gave me an idea. I used to buy clarinets on eBay for their mouthpieces, and this box of reeds came with an Albert System buffet, which was really a great instrument, and it came with a great mouthpiece with a really magnificent mellophone that I played for a number of years. Lee Livingood refaced it, and it was great. Still is, but you know how we clarinet players are, we move on. So, judging by the instrument, these reeds are 100 years old, give or take. Maybe a little bit less, maybe more. Pre-World War II at the latest. And they're very interesting. This one is Exol distributors on the back, a bunch of letters, fakm.co. The back of it, it's stamped with a 3, and then there's says Patent France, and the bark has been kind of shaved or scraped off the back. I think it was scraped off after the manufacturing because the Patent France is somewhat obscured. Here's another Exol distributors with the cane shaved off the back. That one's a little bit more obscuring the stamping. And what's interesting about both of these is that the butt of the reed is slightly rounded, like it's been sanded, and there's a groove cut out of the heel, just on the Exols, not on any of the others. This one, I can't really read what the stamp is. If anybody knows what it is, feel free to comment. But this one, look how short the vamp is. It's like a German reed, it was obviously a French clarinet and a French mouthpiece. This one is can barely make it out. I think it says Ricone on the back, and there's a chip out of the tip. Now, it is certainly possible that that chip was an accident. However, I happen to know somebody who, Tommy Thompson, who was one time playing a reed and he chipped the tip accidentally and the reed played better. So he took the rest of his reeds and took a reed knife and chipped all the tips. Obviously, reed fanatics have been around for a long time. And speaking of Tommy, a few days ago I visited him. And if you haven't watched Tommy Thompson's Airstream Drill or Storytime with Tommy Thompson, I recommend those videos. I told him I'd made a couple of reed tip videos and I asked him for his best tip. Now, in his playing career, Tommy was a reed fanatic. I just told you about what he did with the corners. And these antique reeds have nothing on what Tommy used to do. One of the saner things that he would do is take a file and knock off the corners of a reed so that the butt had an angle to it. He would dig holes in the back of the reeds with a carving tool. You name it. If he could think of it, he would try it. So what Tommy said, he said, my best reed tip is, a good piece of cane with a chipped corner will play better than a bad piece of cane with a perfect cut. So stop looking for the perfect reed, just play. I said that wasn't what I was expecting from a guy who used to dig holes in the back of his reeds. But, that's perspective for you. It's coming from a great player who has a certain amount of distance on the problem. And in the heat of battle, will do anything. When I was playing in the New Zealand Symphony, I was maybe at the height of my reed fanatic phase. I never showed up for rehearsal with fewer than 40 or 50 reeds, which I had made on a reed dual. And I was always breaking them in. I was always looking for the best one. So I was switching reeds constantly. One day, Mary, the second clarinetist, said, "Oh, I hate to break it to you, but those all sound exactly the same. Why do you have so many?" I said, "They don't all feel the same. How many reeds do you have?" She said, "I buy a new box every year." What? So, pardon the weak attempt at a New Zealand accent. Mary would open her new box. I think she played Van Doren traditional number 3s. She would take out a reed and play it for a month and change. No break-in, no adjustment, no discards. I don't remember her mouthpiece precisely, but it was a stock Van Doren, and as I recall, she did not have a spare. Every so many years, she would order a new one. Singular, one. I said, "What if you get a bad reed?" She said, "I don't get any bad reeds. I mean, by the end of a month, they might get a bit naff, but it's all right." Now, the question trembling on everyone's lips is, how did she sound? Mary sounded just fine. She was a working professional clarinetist with a great job in her home country, and she played every single note. She didn't obsess over the clarinet, she just played the damn thing. And if I could sound like Mary on one box of reeds a year, I would trade in a heartbeat. Mary, if you ever see this, I miss you. So here's my point. The clarinet reed is part of a system. There are clarinet playing systems where the reed almost doesn't matter. Then there are systems where it is everything. We can all think of examples of the almost doesn't matter end of the spectrum. When I was in high school, Woody Herman and his Thundering Herd played the local community concert series. I was there early. On the stage there was a clarinet and there was a soprano, alto, tenor saxophones on stands. About 10 minutes before the show, the drummer came out with a little spritz bottle, removed each mouthpiece cap, and sprayed each reed. The concert started, Woody came out, no apparent warm-up, picked up each instrument in the course of a 2-hour concert, and absolutely wailed. As one of my favorite math professors used to say, so far, so what? Well, here's an analogy. If you play tennis, you'll get this. Recreational tennis players use rackets strung at maybe 30 or 40 pounds tension. That's fairly low. A lower tension string stretches more and like a trampoline propels the ball faster. For this player, the racket gives more power. Tennis professionals use rackets strung at much higher tension, maybe 60 or 70 pounds. That's because the pro doesn't need power from the racket. The pro needs control. Less trampoline effect means more control. So the lightly strung racket amplifies the amateur's power at the cost of some control, while the tightly strung racket damps the professional's much greater power for the sake of control. I think some clarinetists are like tennis pros in that they generate their tone with an overabundance of energy, and they play through the resistance of the reed. Other clarinetists depend on the response of the reed to generate tone, and they play to the resistance of the reed. A clarinetist who plays to the reed needs it to do a lot and will always be looking for a reed that responds more. A clarinetist who plays through the reed will be looking for the reed to hold. Obviously, there's a spectrum, and I'm not saying that all professional clarinetists play through the reed or that clarinetists who play through the reed don't still spend lots of time and money looking for a great one. There's the matter of comfort. But I think this explains why great musicians sound like themselves day in and day out, no matter what they play. It explains how some players can unwrap a brand new reed, play a concert, throw the reed in the trash, and then do the same thing the next night. That's a clarinet playing system where what matters about the reed is that it be brand new. Is that wrong? Fine. You tell Paul Meyer he's wrong. On the other hand, Robert Marcellus wouldn't play a reed that he hadn't broken in for 28 days, and he passed that discipline on to most of his students. We can't say that's wrong. He sounded fantastic. But I know from talking to people who knew him well that however fantastic he sounded, he was never satisfied with his sound. Depending on how you look at it, that's either sad or it's simply what it took. Perhaps the most important part of the clarinet playing system is mental, the desired outcome. So the question is, what kind of clarinet playing system are you? Or more importantly, what kind of clarinet playing system do you want to be? Personally, I want to be the kind of system that can play any reed and sound consistent, even if I complain about it. The week before last, I was playing second to Mike Rusnick, and before the concert he said, "I've got shiitake for reeds." And he went on and sounded fantastic. I can't do that. I aspire to do that, so I will sometimes set myself the challenge of picking a reed out of my drawer of discards and practicing on it. If it's too hard, I'll scrape or sand it down, but otherwise I just deal with it and work to find my sound and response in a somewhat deficient reed. In this respect, I am disobeying Robert Marcellus, who advised his students, always play your best reed. So here's a dilemma. Do you practice on your best reed so that you always hear yourself playing with your best sound, at the possible cost of becoming dependent on a very rare sort of reed? Or do you practice on run-of-the-mill reeds so that you don't become dependent on the perfect reed, at the possible cost of becoming used to less than your best sound? Okay, that's a false dilemma. We're talking about a system, and every system has so many variables that it will be unique. It's up to you to assess your system and decide whether you need to mess with any of the variables, the most important variable being the sound in your head. Somehow, each of us strikes a balance between the need for a quality sound and a degree of comfort to be provided by our equipment, and the need for a quality sound to be generated by us, never mind the equipment. If you're like Mary and you're making a living on one box of reeds a year, I'm certainly not telling you to work on reeds. But if you are taking auditions and not getting anywhere, and you don't work on reeds or have a break-in process, perhaps you should explore that. You might find low-hanging fruit. If you are a reed fanatic, if you work on all your reeds, if you have a strict break-in protocol, if you have a drawer in your practice room that looks like this, I'm not telling you to stop. But if despite all of that you're uncomfortable with your setup and unhappy with your sound, maybe you should look at other parts of the system. Or you're the next Robert Marcellus and I should just shut up. Go get 'em.